Welcome to The Explainer. You know, if you've been studying Japanese for a little while now, you have almost certainly hit that specific, incredibly frustrating wall. Yep, I'm talking about the intermediate plateau. You've worked hard, you've built up a really solid vocabulary, and you totally understand your basic sentence structures. But when it comes to actually stringing those individual words together into something that sounds, well, natural, it just feels a bit clunky. Honestly, it's like having a giant pile of puzzle pieces, but you're just kind of forcing them into the wrong spots. Well, today we are diving into source material that gives us two absolutely crucial pieces to solving that exact puzzle. We're talking about nado and nagara. By mastering these two high-frequency N4 grammar points, we're going to see how you can instantly elevate your Japanese fluency and communicate with a completely new level of sophistication.
So let's set the scene. Have you ever found yourself in this kind of situation? You're meeting a new language exchange partner, or maybe you're introducing yourself to a group for the first time, and they inevitably ask that classic question, what are your hobbies? Now, if you're an interesting person with a lot of hobbies as a beginner, it is so incredibly common to get stuck in that awkward trap of trying to breathlessly list every single one of them. You know the drill. You find yourself saying, I like reading and swimming and running and cooking and watching movies. It literally takes forever. It's exhausting for you to say, and honestly, you can almost see the listener's eyes starting to glaze over. You just want a simple way to give them a flavor of what you enjoy without reciting the whole shebang like a grocery list.
Or, okay, think about this completely different scenario. You're trying to explain what you did last night. You weren't just eating dinner, and you weren't just watching Netflix. You were actually doing both at the same time. Describing simultaneous actions is a massive communication barrier when you're first starting out. Without the right grammar tools, you end up awkwardly breaking the thought into two separate, totally robotic sentences. You end up saying, I ate dinner. I watched Netflix. Let's really think about how that sounds. I ate dinner. I watched Netflix. I mean, sure, it gets the point across, but it completely lacks any sort of conversational flow. And that right there sets up the exact two problems that our Japanese particles today are perfectly designed to solve.
So here is our quick roadmap for today's explainer. We'll start with simplifying lists with nado, move into the mechanics of nagara, cover some common grammar pitfalls, do a quick N4 grammar summary, and end with your practice challenge.
All right, let's jump right into Section 1, Simplifying Lists with nado. So, what is nado? Well, it translates roughly to things like or etc. in English. Grammatically speaking, it's super straightforward. You just attach it directly to a noun. But what this actually does in a live conversation is beautifully subtle. It essentially signals to your listener, hey, I'm giving you a few examples here, but just so you know, there are a bunch of other things in this category that I'm just leaving unsaid. And leaving things unsaid, relying on context and mutual understanding, is a deeply natural feature of Japanese communication. Instead of listing 10 items in a row and losing your breath, you just give two representative items, slap a nado on the end, and boom, you instantly sound so much more seasoned.
Let's look at a concrete example straight from the source material so you can see how this actually works in the wild. I'm going to read this slowly. Panya de pan ya keiki nado o kaimashita. Let's break that down word for word together. We have panya de, which means at the bakery, then pan, which is bread. We've got ya, which we are going to talk about in just a second, keiki, which is cake, and then nado o kaimashita, bought things like. So panya de pan ya keiki nado o kaimashita. Fully translated, this means I bought bread, cake, and other such things at the bakery. By placing nado right after keiki, your list is neatly wrapped up. You aren't claiming that you exclusively bought bread and cake, you're saying you bought bread, cake, and, other bakery stuff.
I absolutely love this because it brilliantly illustrates the power of implication in Japanese. Think of this as creating a vivid little micro-story for your listener. Imagine you're standing there holding a warm paper bag from the local bakery. You can literally smell the fresh baked goods. You tell your friend you bought bread and cake, nado. Now your friend's brain automatically fills in the blanks. That single word, nado, subtly implies that there might be a delicious, unseen chocolate chip cookie hiding at the bottom of that bag, or maybe a flaky butter croissant tucked away in the corner. You don't have to explicitly name every single pastry you bought. This grammar elegantly allows the listener's imagination to do all the heavy lifting.
Now, the source material highlights a really brilliant expert pro tip here to make this sound even better. Nado is very frequently paired with the particle ya. Now, if you remember your basic Japanese grammar, the particle to means and when you are giving a complete finished list. But ya means and when you are giving an incomplete list. So by combining them, by saying a, ya, b, nado, you are forming a highly natural, native-sounding phrase. It perfectly translates to A and B among other things. Using this specific combination is just a wonderful, completely effortless way to elevate your sentence to sound incredibly polished. Let's shift gears and dive into Section 2, the mechanics of Nagara.
Introducing the ultimate multitasker tool, Nagara. If you ever want to talk about doing two things at the exact same time, this is the grammatical bridge you absolutely need. Nagara essentially acts as the Japanese equivalent of the English word while. Its entire purpose is describing two actions happening simultaneously. But listen up, because it is absolutely vital to remember one fundamental rule about Nagara. These simultaneous actions must be performed by the exact same person. It is one person multitasking. Let that sink in for a moment, because it's a rule we are definitely going to revisit. First, though, let's figure out how to actually build a sentence with it.
The conjugation rule for Nagara is incredibly methodical, and honestly, quite satisfying once you get the hang of it. You just need to know your verb stems. Here is the step-by-step. Step 1. You take your standard, polite verb form. Let's use nomimasu, which means to drink. Step 2. You isolate the verb stem. And to do this, you simply slice off the masu right at the end of the word. So what you are left with is just nomi. That is your stem. Step 3. You take that stem, nomi, and you attach nagara directly to it. So, nomimasu seamlessly becomes nomi nagara. This transforms the verb from drink to while drinking. It really is just a clean, simple three-step process.
So let's hear our freshly conjugated verb fit neatly into a full sentence. Listen to the musicality and the flow of this structure. Kohi o nomi nagara hon o yomimasu. Let's hear that one more time together. Kohi o nomi nagara hon o yomimasu. Kohi o nomi nagara, that's while drinking coffee, hon o yomimasu. I read a book. Put it all together and you get I read a book while drinking coffee. By using this structure, you've successfully communicated a complex, simultaneous action super smoothly, and you've totally avoided that robotic two-sentence trap we talked about earlier.
Now you might be wondering, wait a second, does the order actually matter? Could I just flip it and say I drink coffee while reading a book? Well, the source material points out a really crucial nuance here. With nagara, the second verb, the one anchoring the very end of the sentence, is always your main focus. In our example, action B, reading a book, is the primary activity. Action A, drinking coffee, is really just the side activity happening in the background. So, if your absolute main goal for the afternoon was drinking an amazing cup of specialty coffee and you merely happened to be glancing at a book at the same time, you'd actually swap them. You would say hon no yominagara, kohi o nomimasu. Always remember, the most important action anchors the end of the sentence.
Moving right along to Section 3, Common Grammar Pitfalls.
Remember a minute ago when I heavily emphasized that the actions have to be performed by the exact same person? This is exactly where beginners tend to get tripped up. Nagara strictly requires the exact same subject for both the side action and the main action. It is grammatically impossible to use Nagara for two different people doing different things at the same time. For instance, you absolutely cannot use Nagara to try and say something like, I ate while you sang. If you try to string that together with Nagara, a native speaker will be deeply confused because the grammar inherently implies that the person doing the singing is also the person doing the eating. So lock this in. Nagara strictly equals one person, two actions. No exceptions.
Let's move to Section 4, N4 Grammar Summary. Let's do a really quick review of the summary table directly from the source material just to let these concepts fully settle in your brain. First up, we have nado. Its English equivalent is and so on or etc. The foundational grammar rule is super easy. You just attach it directly to a noun. Noun plus nado. Second, we have nagara. Its English equivalent is, while doing action A, I do action B. The grammar rule for this one requires just a slight modification. You take the verb stem, remember to drop that masu, and then add nagara. Verb stem plus nagara. Honestly, just absorbing these two simple rules unlocks a massive portion of N4 level expression.
Finally, let's hit Section 5, your practice challenge.
Okay, here's a direct challenge for you to help move this information from your short-term memory into long-term retention. Think about this question right now. What is one thing you are doing or maybe like to do while listening to this explainer? Are you commuting to work? Are you cooking dinner? Are you diligently taking notes? Take just a second right now to actually form a sentence in your head using naga nagara. Maybe it's something like gohan o tsukuri nagara, while making dinner. And hey, to practice our other point, look around your room right now and list a few items you see using nado, desu chera nado. Actually applying the grammar immediately to your own life is the absolute best way to master it for good.
And there we have it. You now have the source material's best tools to make your Japanese lists way less exhausting and your multitasking much more articulate.
Keep practicing finding those verb stems and definitely keep imagining those little micro stories with Nagara. Ganbatte kudasai. Keep doing your absolute best. But all of this does beg a rather provocative question. If Nagara is strictly built to handle simultaneous actions for just one person, how in the world do you express two entirely different people doing things at the exact same time? Now that is a fascinating linguistic puzzle, and it's one we will absolutely have to discover the answer to next time.